Today, we'll be continuing our journey with building our very own Tamagotchi clone, Giga-Vue. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Ben Hong and I'm a Vue.js core team member and a senior developer experience engineer at Netlify. And today on Building with Ben, we're going to be focusing on giving our Giga-Vue pet some life by allowing it to have different emotions. So let's jump right in. So jumping into VS Code, we have the Giga-Vue project opened already, and I have it in my terminal that we're running on 8080. So that's how we see that here on the right-hand side. And so just as a reminder, last we got started, when we actually enter in our pet name, so in this case, Destinio, and we click on new pet, you can see that we see our dinosaur. And that's great, but at this point, our dinosaur only has one state, and we need to be able to give it basically different emotions. And so if we look inside of our project, we'll see here inside of our README that we actually want to be able to switch the pet's mood. And so let's take a look at app.vue and see what we got here. Okay. So let's see. So as I'm reminded, everything is currently living in router view, and we basically only have one page in our router view right now, which is our home page, which is totally fine. And so as I'm looking at this, we can see that at one point we basically have a wrapper here that styles everything, and then we have our Giga-Vue and our pet living as siblings. And so when I'm looking at this though, I'm immediately thinking that this actually doesn't make, like, we did this when we're scaffolding sort of the basic concept. But if we think about it, like if Giga-Vue is a device that contains our pet, well, then it really would only make sense that DinoPet would actually be a child of Giga-Vue. And so I think that's what we should do in this case. We actually need to move everything from DinoPet into Giga-Vue. And so to do that, let's go ahead and just, let's see what we're gonna do. We have some styles associated with it, that's fine. So what I'm gonna do in this case is let's go ahead and delete DinoPet, or let's cut DinoPet and cut these styles down here. So then this means that we won't need this reference and right here. And so what we should expect to see right now is that our device resets, which it does, which is great. And so now let's jump over into Giga-Vue. And so the challenging here with Giga-Vue at this point is that, for those who watched first episode, we are in a gigantic SVG shape. And so as we're going through here, it's probably good to start thinking through what we want to do here. And so what we need to do first is identify where the screen is, right? Because again, while SVG might be foreign, I think for a lot of us when we first get started, we do have to remember that it's still based on the fundamental principles we are familiar with in terms of HTML, right? There are tags, and these tags contain and do different things. And so, for example, the SVG is sort of our larger wrapper. And so G here, it stands for the grouping. So in this case, we've grouped certain basically elements together. So think of it kind of like a div. And then, so we have another group here, and then our path, which is basically tracing things. And so we can actually see how things work, right? So if we like comment out, well, let's see, this one. So if we comment out this path right here, for example, and save it, we'll see here that that path is responsible for tracing out the entire shape. And so in this regard, while SVG might seem really foreign, we have to remember that they're really just, it's made up of like, think of drawing made up in like HTML elements. It's really the best way I try to think of SVGs. So the question here is though, how do we basically drop in the pet inside of this? And so my first instinct really is to look for the, basically like we want to look for the screen. I think that's my first instinct. And so my guess is though, because this polygon is here with white, we can see here that if we comment this out, this should basically, see, we save it and refresh. Oh, that makes sense. It's not going to do anything because if right now, it doesn't look any different because right now the background, let's see, for example, if we did our HTML over here and we had a background color of red, for example, you'll see that, ooh, I can't type. All right, you see that it actually like shines straight through and there's basically no screen there. On the other hand, if we went ahead and uncommented and saved this, for example, you see now the screen actually overlays correctly. And so that's basically the main difference here. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking we should probably try to position our DinoPet within this. And so while initially you might be thinking like, okay, let's try to drop our DinoPet. So we might go, okay, so in here we have our script block, and then we're going to import DinoPet from, and so we don't need to jump it's in the current directory, so we're good. Export default components dino pet. And then, so that's our component. We have dino pet now, although I just misspelled that. So let's just dino pet like that, Pascal case. Great, we've used it. It's never been used. That's totally fine. Okay, so here, where was our white shape? So you might be compelled at first, like again, if we're thinking HTML, to say that, okay, within this polygon, we're gonna drop this dino pet thing in. And that might be what we're thinking. But if we'll notice though, it's kind of, well, nothing, it's not really working. If we inspect in here, we have a polygon, and inside of the polygon, there's another SVG, but it's basically gone. It's hidden. And so while I'm sure there are ways to sort of embed SVGs within different SVGs, I think the first thing we're going to do as far as the simplest path forward is, in this case, to go ahead and say, let me close this. Dun, dun, dun. Right. Okay, we have our SVGs here. And so if I'm thinking about this in another way, I think this is where, for now, we'll use CSS to sort of position it, in the sense that here we have our Giga-Vue wrapper, and then, so I'm sure it looks like we're back at the SVG. Let me think about this for a second. Okay. So while we, yeah, okay. So I think what we're going to end up doing is it'll be a little bit similar to the initial solution where we had them as siblings. But in this case, because at this point we'll be, sorry. So what we're going to do now is, since we, so since right now you can see that just importing the component like directly within the polygon doesn't actually render anything like you might expect in like a normal div, I think we're gonna use the original strategy as far as like styling them in a way that positions it so that we position the pet inside of the SVG. So what we can do here is I'm gonna add a wrapper to this entire thing. So let's see, actually the best way to do this is just to, let's collapse this, highlight here, and then we do Command M, Command W, which is emit wrap. And so we'll wrap this in a div. I'm just going to call it wrapper. And then this wrapper then can have our dino pet here, which I had cut from the previous example. I'm not going to worry about the conditional right now. And then we have some style modules, and this is where it would be good for us to, for now, drop the dino pet styles, although I am thinking we're gonna rename that. Okay, so right now we have our dinosaur reappearing again. So our question is, how do we make sure that it positions accordingly? Well, if we go back to home, we'll see here that this wrapper is actually pretty important, because this is what's basically like allowing things to flex and justify. So we're gonna actually bring that over, because that is not important on this page anymore. And we want it here instead. So let's jump back up to the top. And then we're gonna bind this style wrapper. And then look at that, everything's good now. So if we look at this, our pet is appearing right in the middle. And so the reason this is this is different from our initial approach is because currently inside of home, right, you'll see now that Giga-Vue is what's encapsulated it. And now we officially, like, DinoPet is a child of Giga-Vue. So that when DinoPet wants to do something, then it'll be Giga-Vue that's responsible for managing that, and then we can go from there. And so here, inside of our, let's actually, I think we should just save what we've done so far. This is actually a good place to save. So here we've done a refactor, move GigaPet. Wow, I keep saying that. Move DinoPet into Giga-Vue. All right, and we're good. Okay, so refresh. Why does it not like that? Hard refresh. Style was accessed blurring render but not mounted on the instance. What is breaking? Oh, right, this wrapper no longer exists. So we refresh. Okay, now we should be good. Okay. And so let's fix that one bug real quick. So here, wait, why are there two different things? That makes sense. Oh, it looks like prettier just switching stuff back and forth. Ugh, don't like that. Not great. But okay. Not gonna worry too much about this right now. Git commit fix unused style on wrapper. Okay. So now the only thing we actually need to do to make sure this works correctly is we have to pass the new pet's name into the Giga-Vue device. So in this case, we would say pet name equals pet name. It's probably the easiest way for us to go about this. So we save here, and then we define the props here. So then we say pet name is going to be type string, which will be required. And then now we can do the same thing we did before, where if we look at our Dino pet here, we can do v-if pet name. And so if we refresh now, ish is gone. And so let's do another one. Let's call it Sharpo. And then Sharpo appears, and then our Dino appears. So let's add that feature back in. Let's see if we forgot to add it. Feature add conditional appearance of pet. Okay, this is looking better now. So what we need to do though now is that depending on the mood of the pet, we need to actually then be able to define how basically how it's appearing. And so the way we're going to do that is because inside of the initial sort of images that we have a couple of different states that we have. And so let's keep it simple to start with. Let's just make it go from happy to angry. Let's just start there. And so if we look at Dino Pet right now, the actual component, it has a giant SVG in here that's really actually, if we think about it, it's Dino happy. This is actually a state of the component. So in this regard, we have this giant thing in here. And really, when I'm thinking about it, we have really one SVG that's sort of switching in and out. And so if we think of DinoPet this way, I am thinking that if I look at Dino Angry, for example, we have probably similar grouping of things, to be honest. And so this might be a little bit weird at first, but what I want to do here actually is let's clean up some of these metadata. And I'm thinking, no, okay. So my initial thought was we would actually just leave the SVG as like a wrapper and then just like slot in all the paths, which I don't think is a terrible idea, but it does leave us with some complications in terms of how people use the SVG. Like basically you would always assume there's an SVG wrapper. And so rather than complicate that at the moment, we always want to start simple and get something working. So the first thing we should do really is to just, I'm gonna duplicate this file and we're gonna call this dino happy.view. Yes, that's what I'm gonna call it. And so Dino Pet though, on the other hand, really should just be, yep, okay, I got it. What we want for now is that Dino Pet is gonna simply be a component that will be calculated to be the different, yeah, okay, so is, and so it can basically be different things. So, okay, let me explain what I'm doing here. So here we're gonna have a, let's say, so the props is gonna be the mood of the dinosaur. So in this case, for now it'll be a string and the default will be happy. And so if we think about it like this, then I think we should be able to say is, let's see, computed property, and then we'll say dino image, nope, dino mood, and then return basically an import. I believe we can do this of the oh wait, do I even know go backwards? I don't think I do. Components. All right, let's say dino happy, just like this. And then if I do dino mood here and save, this might not work. Oh right, I have this thing. Let me take this out first. So we refresh it. Nothing is in here. Is anything breaking though? Okay, that's fine. So okay, that shows me I may have just. Let's check the docs real quick. That's always where we go with these sort of things. Component. Where's the built-in components? No, I want the dynamic components. Dynamic and async components. Here we go. Is current tab component. Yep. Component is current tab component. How do we define current tab component? Yes, tab. But that assumes your tab component is already existing. Yeah, this is the async one. This is the one I'm more interested in because I really only wanted it to load if it switches. Oh, I forgot. Yep. So this is one thing that's different about Vue 3 is that we have to define async components. So if that's the case, then Yep. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different than we might have done in Vue 2. Okay, so we have our Dino pet, and so what we're going to do here is following our help with like sort of the docs here. We import a define async. Let me do this for Vue so we can get autocomplete. To define async component here. And then we can register our components async here. This should still work. So in this case, it would be, so we wanted happy, I think we called it dino happy is our component, and define async component like this. And then just to double check I have my syntax right. Yeah, I am right. Okay. We are returning import of dino happy like this. And so I think then this means that I can return dino happy. I could be totally wrong. Nope, didn't like it. Which makes sense actually because it's not defined. But then how do you refer to it? Okay, so what we don't want to do is we don't want to return the actual like component like this. Like obviously I made the mistake of thinking here would be here, and that's not what we want. We actually want to return the actual like component that we'll call. And so that's what we simply need to return it as a string, and then it will know what to do from here. So as you can see here, if we save now and refresh, it appears as correct, or appears as we expect. And now, if I go ahead and create, for example, a dino angry .view, and then, so now we can, I think there's no styles in here. Yeah, there's no styles in here. So we can wipe all this out, although it really looks like that SVG needs to be optimized. So for now, we're just worried about template. We're not going to worry about anything else. So taking all that, that definitely looks like it needs to be optimized. But one thing at a time. Okay, here dropping this out and save. Okay, we have a dino angry, dino happy. So we have two different components now. And so what we're gonna do is dino angry is also gonna be an async component. And so if you're wondering what an async component means, it just means that basically it doesn't load it until you need it. That's at least my basic understanding of it. Whereas like when you just load it, that means like regardless of whether you use it or not, basically it will get pulled in. And so certainly there may be an argument for our pet, especially when you're talking about mood, just to like have everything locally. but I thought it was fun to think of it just a little bit from a performance perspective, to just like split it up, and then we can always go back. It's actually pretty easy. So here we have basically it'll be like this. So if this dot mood, although I just realized this dot mood basically determines what it is. So again, for now, let's just assume that the mood is always a capital H. We could always transform it, but then we could really just go return, and then we do ES literal and say dyno, and then this dot mood. And so if that's the case, and I switch this to angry just to make sure this works. Hey, look at that! The dinosaur's angry! And so now your prop will essentially define the different moods that it's in. And then, so let's go ahead and do one more. Let's do dino sleep, define async component. And so in here, then we can import our oh, I don't have a dino sleep. It's fine. I'll do it we'll do it here. So save. It's not gonna like that because it doesn't exist, but we will fix that right now. So dino angry is getting duplicated to dino sleep. And again, deleting that, doing our view snippet. And then I like the dino sleep, so we're taking that one, dropping it in template. All right, style block, we won't worry about that right now. In the future, I would probably optimize this SVG, which we can run through just a generator. But for now, we just want to see something working. Save. Okay. So now we have sleep and angry. And so the way we're going to test whether this works or not is to basically actually pass it down to our component. So dino pets here, okay. So there's going to be a mood that we're going to bind to, and I'm just going to call it pet mood, actually, just be a little bit more explicit. So the mood is here, and then that means for now, you know, you could imagine that like you would click on these buttons, but again, to eventually we would actually want to have some sort of algorithm that like changes the pet's mood, and then the user can react to those moods accordingly, which is actually what you really want out of sort of a digital pet. So for the sake of, you know, again, just like being able to switch moods right now, we'll go ahead and just get past the pet mood as well. And so again, type string required true. The fact that I'm already seeing multiple like pet name, pet mood leads me to believe that we probably will be needing some sort of state object where it just tracks the pet in general, and then we can go from there. So here on home, we can then say, all right, so now that we have all this stuff, let's see, we have this form here. All right, so then actually, I'm just gonna do another div, because if there is no create form, we will have a series of buttons that allow you to set basically the mood. So what we said happy, we said angry, and we said, whoops, and we said sleep. So at click equals update pet mood. And then I guess for now, we're just gonna be literal about it to happy, angry, and sleep. And so pet mood doesn't exist on Giga-Vue yet. So let's just do pet mood equals pet mood. So this should yell at us, probably yelling at us somewhere because it says this doesn't exist. But we are gonna resolve that with pet mood here. And so pet mood by default is gonna be happy, so we're gonna leave it like this. And so we can see here it works, and just to verify that it still works is that we go angry, it swaps out. So this is good. And all we need to do now is be able to update the pet mood. So we can create a function here, update pet mood. You see that, VS Code's helping me out, love it. State that pet mood is gonna be equal to be honest, whatever mood is being passed in. So it's just like this. And then we can, whoop, I missed something. I'm sure y'all saw it too. Gotta export. Okay, so now if I go ahead and again, just type it like Dante, although I spelled this well, Dante. It's happy, it's angry, it's sleeping. Yay, we have a working, oh well, the mood is now, we can now shift the mood for our dino pet. And so this is pretty cool. The only thing though I realize is that our dyno is showing up by default right now. So what we can do is let's go ahead and re-add in our vif, because now we know it works. So what is the vif? It was vif pet name, basically was what determining it. So there we go. We have a blank screen. Theoretically, actually, this might be, I don't know, if we're being creative, there's probably should be a little like, the title maybe should be in here and it should say like Giga-Vue. And then when you initialize it, like swaps out the screen. So that's like a fun little creative thing we could probably do later on. Okay, so I think we have accomplished this. So let's actually, hold on. I always forget this. I get so excited that we finished the task. Now let's take a look at the README, and we can actually now switch the mood of our Giga-Vue. All right. So our Vue Rex is now able to have different emotions. And so we have this feature, Dyno Pet can now have different emotions. All right, and so right now, because we are on, we're localhost, right? So if we go into the live Giga-Vue .netlify app, which we deployed before, you'll see that if we go ahead and like you'll see here, like again, if I do dyno here and hit enter, like we have what we have, like we have the old version of our app. But just to show you how this works is that like, so if, let's go ahead and open, actually I need to process the CLI more. So if we open up the site here, this is really one of the things I love about Netlify here, and okay. So now we've opened up Netlify here, we see that one of the things we have the deploys basically waiting. And so here now, if I push to origin main, you see now that once it pushes up, it, basically GitHub will update as you would expect. And then when we refresh this page, you'll see now that it automatically triggers a new deploy. And then this will now allow us to go ahead and get this site that, this will now allow us to get the latest version of our app deployed on our site, basically with no additional work on our end. And what's beautiful about this is that because basically every single deploy is its own version history, we can actually go backwards and actually see what it was like. So here we can see this deploy, for example, and we'll see that this was the original sort of Giga-Vue that we first published. And so you see that it actually had an about page. And so I, in between the last video that we did, I did some cleanup just to sort of like remove some of the boilerplate. But this is cool because then you can actually like publish specific deploys in case like the latest one breaks or something's wrong. So what you ultimately get with this is actually version control history with your deployments, which for those of us who like are sort of been developing for the web for quite some time, this is a huge improvement over how we used to have to FTP everything up to the web, which basically meant like we had to like literally open a folder with our server in it. And then just like drag files in and just like hope for the best. And gosh, caching and stuff, that was so painful. And so you'll see now that our publish went from this 456 F08 all the way to this new one. So it has different emotions. And so now if we go here, you'll see that, sorry, if we open it in our browser, you'll see now that we do dyno here, boom. We have everything. Our new features are here. So it can be angry, it can sleep, and it can be happy. For those who want to check out the code that we built today, I'll make sure to include a link in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the Giga-Vue series where I built a card flipping game using Vue 3.